Hi all, and welcome to the weekly Fife Property Market Update. So we're covering the weekly update from the 20th to the 26th of August, and what I'm going to show you and discuss is basically the weekly roundup. So what's driving the Fife property market? We're going to look at recent listings, sales, what's coming soon with ourselves, also looking at the weekly stats, comparing this week to last week and seeing if we can identify some trends. Looking at some of the shows that we did last week as well. So we'll do a bit of a review of the podcast that we did, some of the shows and broadcasts that we did live last week. And also I'll give you some details of the wealth creation show that is going to be scheduled tomorrow for midday. So lots to cover this week actually. So what a busy week we had in regards to shows as well. So one of the things that we did talk about was how to get ahead of the game. So this was basically a show that Jim and myself did, and it was discussing how to get ahead of the game and get yourself sold going into September. And if you want to get moving this year, why really you're not wanting to wait much longer, because actually if you do, it might not happen. So you really have to give yourself the best chance that you can and get yourself moved before Christmas. I know the Christmas word, it's a bit scary, isn't it? But absolutely, it's just around the corner. So we talked a bit about that. So again, we talked about how September really tends to see a bit of a flood coming to the market in property as well. Gave you some really good tips in regards to how you can get yourself ahead of the game and compared to others, make your house stand out more, and how you can get ready. There is a link on this show today, so you can go on the link, you can watch the podcast, you can read the article. It literally takes 4 minutes. But a lot of what we talked about, as I say, is how you get yourself ready and how you get yourself ahead of the game. And actually, I think where we're at just now as well, there's a lot going on in the markets with interest rates, cost of living, energies, etc. So lots of things that are impacting what people are deciding to do. One of the things that I've been thinking about over the weekend as well is, you know, if you're noticing that maybe prices are falling in your area, or that's what you perceive may be happening, you won't make a sale actually if you're going to be predicting when you think those prices are going to go up. We constantly speak about, don't we, how everything is driven by your circumstance, and you really need to operate your life around what is driving your circumstance, and that will really help you with the decisions that you make. You make a sale by recognising when those prices are going to stop, if they have at all impacted yourself. Know the patterns that are in the market, so that's something that we're going to talk about just now as well, and that will really help you understand what the patterns are like in Fife and if that's impacting you. And a lot of it is really trying to understand the psychology of the market by understanding your facts. We always speak about facts, don't we? And not just the headlines. It's actually looking and drilling into the numbers. So we'll cover some of that later as well and give you a feel for how that might impact you in your property. But actually, it's not necessarily, as I say, about looking at the property market going down in your area. It's about predicting what is impacting you and how it might impact you going forward. You've got to convince yourself of when you need to buy. Your circumstances will sometimes dictate that. And actually, just go now is what we would say, because you can't predict what's going to happen next. And if it's your circumstance and what's driving you just now, then I would say that you have got the right time to do that. So what's been selling with ourselves and what's coming soon that we're going to cover, and also what has completed. So when we talk about completed, we talk about keys handed over. So we can actually give you an idea of what is selling in your area and for what numbers. This is not just to say, you know, this is what we've sold and this is what we've got coming to market. It's about giving you insight to what might be happening in your street, what might be happening in your area. If you're considering moving to that area, perhaps the type of property we're going to speak about is something that you're looking for, and it'll give you a good indicator as to what you could be expecting to pay for that property. So I'm going to cover some of that off with you as well. So the first thing I'm going to cover though is the numbers. So let's have a look at the stats, because there's some real interesting reading on this. So I was having a look at this earlier on. So this is this week's numbers from the 20th to the 26th of August. And as you can see, for Cooper, instructed, so that's property coming to market, there was 11, and sold was 11. Even Stevens there. East Neuk is 10 and 3, St Andrews 8 and 8, Leadmouth 11 and 10, Dunfermline 40 versus 47. With Dunfermline as well, we take into account the adjusted numbers for any of the new builds there, so there is a slight impact in the numbers there. Glenrothes 14 and 15, Kirkcaldy 24 and 18. So the total properties instructed last week were 118. What sold? 112. How did that compare to last week? Well, that's something that I've just been having a little look at. So if we go back to Cooper 11 and 11, last week actually that was 7 instructed and 11 sold. So same numbers this week. So between those 2 weeks, again, 2 weeks doesn't make a trend, but I want to just give you an idea of what the numbers look like. So Cooper, we had 18 instructed throughout the whole of Fife through all of the agents, and 22 properties actually sold. So that's 122% of what is available has sold. That's a really strong market. That is showing us that actually demand is out there still, which is really positive, isn't it? East Nook, as you can see for this week, it was 10 and 3. And funnily enough, actually Snap for last week was 10 and 3. So 20 versus 6 over the last 2 weeks, that's 27% sold. Now, that's not to say that actually what has come on in that week is sold. This could be property that has been there for a few weeks. It's not necessarily all working hand in hand, but it gives you a bit of an indicator as to what's happening in each area. St Andrews, as you can see, was 8 and 8. Last week, it was 7 and 13. So it was 15 versus 21. So 15 instructed and 21 sold. So again, demand is there, 140% over the last 2 weeks is what's been sold in that area. Leaving, you can see there, 11 and 10. Last week it was 8 and 13. So that's 19 instructed versus 23 sold. 121% demand again in the Leaving area over the last 2 weeks. So again, strong numbers. Dunfermline, 40 versus 47, as you can see. Last week it was 41 versus 41. So it's 81 versus 88. So it's 109%. So again, the demand is there. Glenrothes, as you can see, it's 14 and 15. Last week it was 15 and 12. So overall it's 29 versus 27. So that's 93%. But actually that's still really positive. When we take into account properties that maybe sell but then don't kind of complete, or we don't see numbers. So, you know, some people are selling but not buying, might be deceased estates, separations, maybe moving into rentals, etc. There could be a number of reasons for that. But we say that a healthy market sits around the 90% point. And actually nearly all of these regions are over supplying on that number. Look at Kirkcaldy, 24 versus 18, 26 versus 30 for last week. So that's overall 50 versus 48. So 96% in there as well. So again, still a healthy market. But when we look at the combined numbers for the week on week, for the last 2 weeks, we've had 114 instructed last week versus 125 sold. This week it's 118 versus 112. So overall, we had 232 properties that were instructed over the last 2 weeks and 237 sold. So that's 102%. So again, the demand is there. So it gives you a bit of a flavour for what might be happening in your area. It's quite interesting actually to see that those numbers are so well matched in all of the locations, really primarily. So one of the other things that we like to talk about as well is what we've sold in the area. And again, this is again, as I said, to give you a flavour of what's in your street. Are you thinking of selling? Do you have an indicator as to what your property is valued at? Give you a good insight as to what is going in the area. Maybe helps you make a decision as well. So the first one that we sold was in Killessie. So this was lovely. This was a beautiful little cottage, lots of potential with it. It's sold in 6 weeks. It's a 2-bed, semi-detached, as you can see, but it had beautiful grounds, great outside space. And that was listed at offers over 185,000. And the new owners are absolutely delighted, the local people. So again, it's great to keep that in the village. The next property that we sold was in London Links, and this was on Links Road. This one sold in 2 weeks. It's a 2-bed, first floor apartment, really popular. Actually, the views were fantastic. Looked right across the golf course, really beautiful. So that was listed at offers over 150,000, and as I say, it sold in 2 weeks. The new owner is delighted. They're moving closer to their family, so it works out really well for them. The next property we sold was in St Andrews, and this was Scooney Hill Road in St Andrews. This sold in 3 weeks. There was a lot of demand with this property. We did have a couple of people who missed out on this one as well. It's a 3-bedroom terraced house, as you can see. It was listed at offers over 285,000, and the new owners are delighted to relocate to the area. So that's a really big plus for them as well. So that gives you a bit of a flavour for what we're selling in the area. We've got lots of property coming soon as well, so I want to talk to you about that. So again, give you an idea of whether you're in that street. So Mayfield Terrace in Collinsborough, we've a 2-bedroom end terraced house coming on there. This is a beautiful property. What an amount of garden it has. It has a fantastic driveway as well, lots of space, great outdoor opportunity. It's at the end of a cul-de-sac, so there's no through road. Really peaceful location, beautiful garden. So that one's coming on. I'm doing the pre-portal for that one in a couple of weeks, so look out for that coming. We've got another coming on in Taylor Street as well in Methil. So we've got a 2-bedroom ground floor apartment coming on there. Dower Street in Leven, always a popular area, a 2-bed first floor apartment. So lots coming on in regards to what is available in the Leven area. But we've also got Burnside Terrace in Anstruther. That's a 1-bedroom ground floor apartment. Apartments seem to be doing really well. We talk about that quite frequently, don't we? And it's good demand for that kind of property. Is it a good price point? And that's what we've been seeing actually, is that price points, everything really 250,000 under seems to be going really well, and the ones that are 300 over just taking that a little bit longer to sell. And I think that's reflective when we see some of those East Neuk numbers as well. Talking of East Neuk, we've got Rosewind and Crail. We've got a 2-bedroom semi-detached chalet coming on. That's a really lovely property, literally just walking down the road and you're down to the harbour. It's beautiful. Cooper Road and Largo Ward, we've got a lovely little cottage coming in there. So it's a 2-bedroom cottage. Beacon Court and Anstruther, again, that's beautiful apartments in there as well. So that's a great location, safe haven for someone who's maybe looking to retire to that area as well. And then we've got Barnton Place in Glenrothes, which is a 3-bed mid-terrace property. So a lot of property coming on just now. So talking about property, how can we help you in regards to your knowledge and understanding of that? So as I say, there are some shows that you can see the links for. I'd highly recommend you watch the one about getting ahead of the game. That's a really good one for you to be looking at. Also, actually, for the investors out there, so the emergence of the accidental Fife landlord. So that was a show actually that Jim and Richard did, and what they were talking about was really, is it impacting the market? Is it impacting the slowness of the market perhaps? Or if you're a private client, you're looking to get into the market, it was also talking about how you could achieve that and how you could enter the market, perhaps get some advice on your portfolio. So that's something that Jim and Richard did, as I say. So I would highly recommend that you go and look at that. What you're seeing there really is the impact of whether the landscape is changing slightly in Fife in regards to that. And I know that Jim covers that quite frequently. The impacts of the government legislations, the shortage of housing is a big factor as well. You know, are we seeing subtle changes in that landscape? Intriguing that there are an uplift in accidental landlords amidst a housing market slowdown from the levels in 2021 to 2022. Some Fife homers are considering alternative routes. And that could impact the market. We're not really sure yet. Looking at the stats for the last 2 weeks, that's still a positive market that we're finding ourselves in. But actually, some people do prefer to rent. So that might be an opportunity as well. So they do talk about that. As I say, the link is on the show. You can also go and read the article. It's 4 minutes, as I said, like some of our other articles. Next thing to cover is completed. This is really helpful for you to understand what potentially is selling in your area, give you an insight as to what your property may be valued at, maybe just help you make some decisions as well on what you want to do with regards to your property. Maybe your circumstances are changing and this could just be the little nudge that you need to get you on your way. So completed, that's keys handed over. So we had Gilmore Avenue in Leven. This was a beautiful 3-bedroom semi-detached house. I did the pre-portal for that property. It was lovely and it had such great outdoor space as well. There was a fantastic man cave, great summer house, lovely sunny garden as well. That one sold in 8 days. It sold for 5.5% over the home report. So again, you're seeing there, we still are overachieving, even in that market where you're seeing the percentages of that supply and demand there. That was worth another £10,000 to our clients, so they were over the moon. But the new owners were really excited. It was their first family home, so they're really looking forward to settling in there. Next one was at Main Street in Methil. So that was a 2-bed end terraced house. So that sold in 6 months, that one sold. It took quite a bit longer to sell. Again, with some properties, it can be that way. We gave you some tips about getting ready. Watch that show about how to get ahead of the game, because actually this was a particular property that was exactly like that. It had been tenanted previously. The landlord decided that he needed to sell. We did some work with him. We gave him supplier information, got the property ready, and now we've got a first-time buyer who's looking forward to moving into their new home and making a lovely family home out of it as well. And that one sold for slightly under the home report. So you are getting the opportunity out there. First-time buyers, as we mentioned earlier, they are really strong in the market just now. So that kind of property, if you've got one, you're thinking of selling, definitely the market is there for that. The next one that we had was in Hill Street in Ladybank. That was a 2-bedroom detached house. That sold in 1 month, and that sold for 12.8% over the home report value. So that was worth another £25,000 to our client. But the new owner is absolutely delighted. They're looking forward to moving into the village. It's exactly the property that they were after. So that worked out really well for everyone concerned. So that was a really fantastic result for them. The Wealth Creation Show. So Jim and Richard will be doing that. Although Jim is in Spain sunning himself, he will be taking part in the show tomorrow. So Jim and Richard will be doing that at 12:30 tomorrow. It's live on all of our channels. And this is episode 86. Gosh, they've been doing that for some time. What it's talking about this week is patient investing and how it pays off for you, perhaps. So last few years have been eventful, to say the least. I've spoken about that earlier on in regards to, we've had global pandemics, we've had the current war situation, we've had the energy crisis that's been created on the back of that, rising inflation, financial markets changing, interest rates going up and down and mixing, and we're not really sure what's going to happen next with that one. So it's only natural to get a little bit nervous about what is the market going to do? Is there going to be a downturn? But is selling everything now the right thing to do to avoid your losses or not? Or is it counterproductive? Markets rise and fall. Jim and Richard are going to talk to you about that and explain actually why maybe you shouldn't be rushing ahead and just waiting and seeing what happens. So lots of exciting stuff going on. I've shown you some great shows. The links are here. Have a little look at that. Tune in for the show tomorrow. And tune in for next week. So next week will be the full summary. I've given you the last 2 weeks. Next week will be the full summary month on month. So that's always a really exciting one as well, because 4 weeks tends to give you a bit more of an insight in, is there really a trend there or not? So look out for that next Sunday. I look forward to seeing you then. And it's Perry at Fife Properties TV. Take care. Bye-bye.